Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. It's me, Dave, aka the Pig Lord. Welcome. Uh First of all, thanks to all of the new patrons, everybody who's been supporting the streams lately and the creation of this comic. I greatly appreciate that. That's been very, very awesome to see. I see a lot of people jumping in after the stream, so that's great. And I hope that you enjoy the content on there. Uh, Tonight, I'm going to be working on my easier pages. Thank heavens. So I'm mostly past all the crazy stuff, or at least like the big montage pages. So this one here, this is a page I sketched out, kind of refined some of my thumbnails with. I'm going to be doing the inks on this one, so it'll be nice and relaxing compared to a lot of the other ones that I was doing, which is, you know, a break I've been wanting for a while. I think I did like 3 large montage pages back to back, so that was a little intense. But yeah, other than that, we're going to be doing the last of the couple review streams for the Discord challenge that we had. So here you go. That'll be coming up in the next few days, I'm guessing. And as always in the chat, if you have any questions, comments, whatever you like, please tag me, do at Dave Raposa. And if you have a question or whatever else, leave it there so that I can easily see it, because I'm kind of just like peering down at the chat every once in a while I'm working. Yeah. Hope you're all having a good night. I'm just going to be merging some layers. This is kind of how I've been sketching out all my stuff for the comic. I just do really quick shading on well, in Patreon, in Photoshop, and then I bring it over into Clip and I actually do my inks in here that, you know, will all be informed by this sketch. It's a little bit, you know, more refined than just a straight up sketch, you know, but for, you know, the purpose it serves right now, it's basically just like a pretty rough version of what my inks will look like, rather than like straight up sketchy pencils or something like that. But I have some pretty good brushes in Photoshop that I use for that. Some inky, pencil-y looking textured brushes with a nice amount of like looseness to them. Yeah, my wife's not here tonight. She's at hot yoga. She goes like Mondays and Thursdays. All right, let's get into this. Oh, I got another thing I kind of figured out. So for the longest time, I don't know if you remember this from past streams where I was painting, but I was using the Sketching Chrome 2 large brushes, these ones that render kind of softly. Let me choose pure black here so you can see. So you get this almost like silky brush, and I had been like rendering from my line work that way for a while, and I just cut that from my process completely, and I use the straight up like hard edge inking brush like this here, and then I just select gray tones between and render with them. And I find that it's way easier to block out my values this way. This is just for anybody who's been waiting for me to talk about painting stuff again. But I've been blocking things out with this hard line brush. And then once I have my values in place from kind of chunking them out that way, I use my softer brush, the one that I was talking about, like I painted before with, and then I kind of blend and render a bit more, adding in some like atmospheric effects and things. I can do like different lighting, softer like glow looks and things to it. But it's very quick, and I'm very happy with the results. So I've been doing this on my work for clients, and I'm just kind of flying through stuff, and then I go in Photoshop and add textures and things after the fact. So I kind of like texture these lines up a bit more, soften them up here and there. But for the most part, I can do everything in Krita this way, which is really nice. So I'm very happy about that. Anyway, I just thought, you may be interested in that sort of thing. So just wanted to quickly share that. I also just realized that I'm working at a 600 DPI resolution image right now. Hopefully that doesn't affect my inks in any weird way for this. How's my setup for handling those big ass files? I just have a M1 MacBook Pro. And I think I don't remember the exact one I got, but I think I maxed out most of it. Not that I necessarily needed to. I'm probably just computer illiterate a little bit, so I just am like, oh, whatever. Just more is better. Was I switching between the chrome large and small? I was just between the thin and large, yeah. But the thin brush is the one that I've been doing my painting with now. Or at least like blocking in my values. Which is something that is pretty new. Yeah, I might not be too crazy about working at 600 DPI with this brush. I think my inks are coming out a bit too smooth for my liking. Which is fine, but I like when it has a little bit more texture. It's almost like a bit too buttery. Huh. Yeah, let me black my screen for a second so you can't see my client work, and let me change the resolution on this because I'm not crazy about that. I'm just going to not save that and just restart. It's fine. Sorry, I've been working on a ton of client stuff, so I'm just hiding most of it. Yeah, I mean, that brush can look really cool at 600 DPI and can look very silky smooth, but I'm not a fan of it for at least that look. I don't care to have that look in this comic because I want it to look kind of sketchy and shitty. You know. For the opaque non-soft chrome, you just turned off the pen pressure settings for opacity. I don't know if I turned off the pen pressure settings because I can still get some varying pen pressure, but I don't know if it ever had that turned on. I mean, if it never had that turned, I never changed it. Let's just say that. So whatever the default is for that, besides like shutting off that color jitter, I didn't do anything. Have you considered making some video guide about pricing yourself and the steps to get clients? Videos on the subject on YouTube all seem to be from people who can't even get clients. I've considered doing stuff like that, but pricing is such a... There's no like scale that I can tell you about. There's nothing I can be like, oh, you do this. Like, well, what's your skill level? Like, what's your experience? Who are you? Do you have any sort of like name in the industry? Like there's so many levels to pricing that I'm always wary to give advice like that because everybody gets different prices. There's no like, this applies to everybody advice. So that's a bit of a difficult video to make. I've been fighting off the urge every day when I'm working on this to work on anything else. I'm trying to stay very disciplined. Trying not to let myself wander off and do other fun things. All my free time is spent finishing this comic. Do you think you'd be able to ink this well on an Intuos? Yeah, for sure. I think it would just be a little different in terms of, you know, how I'm kind of interfacing with the work. There's a slight disconnect with an Intuos for me. It's not terrible, you just get used to it. Obviously, I used an Intuos for many years, like a lot of people who started out doing digital painting. I actually preferred the Intuos to earlier Cintiqs back in the day, because a lot of the Cintiqs, like from the first couple releases, had like this weird drawing on like distant glass effect. Like just the actual distance from your pen to the image was so much that it wasn't worth doing to me. I felt like the Intuos was more one-to-one. But, you know, technology gets better. So eventually I got a Cintiq. I really only started using them because I taught at a couple workshops and I had to do like live demos. And at a few of the demos, the setups that they had were Cintiqs. And I got to see kind of, you know, the generations of Cintiqs like evolve over time to what they are now. And, you know, it's not like Wacom's the only one doing it, but I got to see that change and be like, oh, okay. So thankfully I got to demo them. Otherwise, I don't know if I ever would have bought one. Because they're such a big investment. Especially back when I bought my first one. It's funny, this Castlevania remix sounds like some casino Sonic levels. The brush I'm using isn't anything that I made. It's not something that's like available on my Patreon or anything like that. This is just a default brush that comes with Krita, and Krita is a free program, so you're doing yourself a disservice by not giving it a shot. Yeah, I would like to make more Starvale type animations. That would be really fun, but I have to have the comic first. And I've been revisiting a lot of my old comic work, like I've been talking about on the streams, and I found a few pretty decent ideas for reapproaching some of the elements of the story that existed. Nothing that like I've ever released before. Like all this is just from scripts that I have written since, but I have a lot of plans for it. You know, this is the first chunk of that. This comic won't tie in like directly with the main story of Starvale. This is just like an of the same universe type of story. So these characters exist in that same universe. But this was more meant to be like a short story. But I will carry this style over to the full Starvale story. And the way that I'll probably do it is I'll probably release it in chapters. I was trying to find the best way to do it because I'm not like huge into all the comic reader sites, and I need to have a way, like there's the Patreon that clearly, you know, that works, but I need to have a way to like distribute the issues, like the single issues, before I do like a huge book release. Because it's such an ambitious project, I need to find a way to fund it while I'm working on it that's sustainable. So that's something that I'm trying to figure out. Because otherwise, I need to, like what I'm doing right now, is I work on this stuff in between jobs. So I'm still like working on other stuff while I do this. So I gotta find a way to just like have some sort of online distribution. Kickstarter's not bad. I want to do Kickstarter for my final books, but as far as the actual publishing of like singular issues, I need to find a way to do that. I didn't see your question, Darkstorm. Sorry. This stream got you into writing and trying to draw comics, and it's honestly the most fun you've had with art in a long time. It enforces a different way of thinking. It's so cool. Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, honestly, it's just like if you don't write and you don't make comics, I would suggest like giving it a shot, because you know, just to work out like a different muscle. Like if all you ever do is paint all the time, I find that, you know, writing is just this nice skill that can accompany your art, you know, making little stories and things. Like art and storytelling kind of just go hand in hand, you know. I mean, even as an illustrator, you're illustrating a moment, so it's not like it's so far off. It's just a whole other discipline that you have to, you know, try and get down. Learn the fundamentals like anything else. Find your own voice and all that, and write what you know, all that advice you've heard probably a million times. But even if your ideas, you feel like, oh, I'm not a writer though, I couldn't do that. It's like, just try it if you're into it at all, if you're interested. Don't worry about it failing or being bad. Like, just do something that you actually like. Make something for you first, always. Would you ever do this as a run under a traditional comic publisher? No. No way. I got asked to do Starvale for a major publisher before. They wanted to have me do the whole thing through them, and I think I was going to get like, God, I can't even remember. It was some like pretty low rate per page, and just like I don't get like a huge chunk of the back end, and it just was very, I mean, it was more so just to like fund the actual creation of it rather than making money off of your own creator-owned book. Oh my God. Hey, listen, don't put lyrics in this. That was terrible. I just feel like it's really only ever worth it to do that if you're working on something that isn't entirely yours. If you're working on your own thing, I would much rather just take the hits and then make all the profit on the back end. Just eat shit during the whole process because I'm making it off my own dime. Oh my God. More lyrics? They were like, you've listened to this for too long. Now listen to this dude sing over Castlevania songs. Hey, no thanks. That's fucking nuts. So anyway, yeah, I would much rather make my own stuff. Like, the major difference is you get to control everything. You can put whatever you want in the book, content-wise. There's nobody editing, like, well, it's less for this and more for, like, Steve Lichman. Like, when we're doing Steve Lichman, we can't have an editor come in and be like, you can't put something like that in a published book because it's too offensive or whatever. It's like, I just couldn't possibly do that. It would suck so bad. If you are new and you don't have a huge following, where are you actually putting it out there? I feel like places like Instagram have become worse and worse for that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know. I feel like, honestly, I feel like you have to get pretty creative with how you promote yourself nowadays. If I were doing it, I'd be on everything. I'd be on, like, you know, TikTok and all that shit. I'd be making like shorts, doing voices and shit over my own comic. I would pretty much do what like Joe Kappa does. Like if I had to do it over again with like Steve Lichman and try and make Steve Lichman relevant today without all of the major like image sites and things, I would do that. I would just be on there creating like little short animations, doing all the voices with Dan with like really crude animation. In terms of just making art, though, I feel like I would be on the same sites. I'd be on all the social media, but I'd be recording myself drawing and, you know, just making that type of content all the time. You often recommend to bid on yourself and make your own stuff, but how should one go about marketing themselves, getting seen, and making it a livable wage with their art / their own stuff? Well, you need to be out in the world, you know, working away at your craft until it's viable that you can get work with your current skill level. I balance as best I can work with this sort of thing. So it's like I just slowly over time gained a following, worked a lot, and just tried to take on every little thing. And I always wanted to work on my own stuff at some point, but I mean, it's like you're saying, it's very hard to do all of those things all at once. So I think like really the only like realistic time I could have done that was when I was in my early 20s before I had a family. Like I could have done it. I could have crunched and made something happen. But now it's more like I just need to work. I need to get creative. I need to find like other ways to gain income. I need to sell prints. I need to, you know, like if I were still doing like the conventions thing, I would do that. And then it's just a matter of like continually putting yourself out there, looking for work. And then any minute I got where I'm not doing that, then I'm doing this stuff. Like when I say that sort of thing, I'm not saying it like flippantly. I'm not like, hey, this is easy. Here, do your own thing. I'm saying you should do your own thing, and it's going to be monumentally difficult unless you're already in a very comfortable position or somebody else is helping you with like rent or, you know, whatever's going on in your life. But I never pretend it's easy. You're making sacrifices no matter what. You know, like even for me right now, I'm betting on myself that I shouldn't take on any other work that I could take on. I'll do less work and I'll just do this because I'm banking on the fact that something will come of this. That's the whole thing. It's like I'll make this, I'll be happy that I made it. It's my own personal goal, and then hopefully something comes of this and it isn't just a waste of time, you know? And even if it makes no money, even if this is just nothing, you know, it's just like this one singular project that I put together and I just bring it to fruition and put it out there and nobody likes it, right? Like let's just say that happens. I still learned so much by pushing myself to create something for me. And like there's so many levels to the value that you can derive from your own work, and like not everything to me is like, oh, this would mean success if I had X amount of dollars at the end of it. It's like, no, I'm getting better. Like I'm getting infinitely better at everything that I'm doing, so that each one of these steps, even if they're a misstep, they're a right step in a direction that I'm, gradually inching towards. Like every page that I get done in this, where I'm really honing in on what it means to like ink in this style, I'm getting closer to a goal. If I could make just a really good living doing stuff like this as well, then that's a big plus. But all of the creator-owned shit is a gamble. Like none of it's guaranteed. Like I don't have like a, like I have a decent amount of people like who are liking this stuff that I'm doing right now, which, phew, thank God. But I also had on Steve Lichman, working on Steve Lichman, that comic got millions of views, like millions of views. And I said it before on a previous stream, out of those millions of views and all the regular readers that we had, we still, like just to give you an idea of how that translates, and forgive me if you just heard me say this, but it's like from that you get 6,000 backers. So think of like if something you viewed got 2 million hits and you were like, oh great, now I'm gonna put it out on a Kickstarter and raise money for it. Like you can delude yourself into thinking that like a lot of those people will buy it. But then that's 6,000 people. But that's millions of people who've seen it, and then 6,000 on the other side of it. So for something like this, I'm going in with realistic expectations that only like a few thousand people have seen this. So at best, at my physical release of this book, maybe I sell like, I don't know, a couple hundred maybe? Maybe? I don't know. We'll see. But something like this is very hard to market because people don't really take in serious stories the same way they do comedies. So like something like Steve Lichman is way easier to sell than this. This is just like, this is just weird. Like this, like I'm selling you like a weird sci-fi fairy tale that I just made up, And I can just hope that people want it. But by no means do I think this is going to like pay off in like massive, sales. I don't believe that. And the same thing, like maybe the Starvale comic will, because it has some basis. There's like somewhat of an old group of people that follow it or have any passing knowledge of it. But even then, I'm not like banking on anything happening. I'm banking on that I'm learning a lot. And I have to be happy with that. And I have to be cool with like the only profit that comes from this is the patrons, which I am cool with that. If nothing else, I'm at least supported. Like I have that support. But anyway, yes, I say to bet on yourself and make things while knowing full well that most all of those things will fail, but that you don't want to die with all of those things you want to do still inside you. Here's an existential question. Without Kim and the kids, at the age that you are, would you still feel fulfilled in life with your art and success alone? I mean, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'd be okay, you know, like if I didn't know what I was missing, you know, then I might be like, okay. But I would not want to live that life. I honestly saw the biggest leap in my success when I had kids. Like, everything after having kids was like, I can't even describe it. It was like a superpower or something. Like, all of a sudden, my shit had purpose. Because I don't care, you know, my whole life, I never cared about money. Like, I grew up poor. I wanted to be like a successful person, but like do my own thing. But I never cared to be. I never cared that was measured financially. Like, that wasn't my goal. But like, after having kids and having that be a part of the goal, I realized that, like, oh, okay, like, I need this for their future. I have to really go up a gear in how much I'm working, and that's when everything started. That's when I really started making like real moves, making like bigger industry jobs, and I started doing like all my work that went viral and lots of like bigger projects for clients. And that's when the Patreon started. Like, so much stuff came from that. I just had this crazy desire to get better and have a better life for my family. And I just thought, like, oh, okay, now it matters. Like, now what I'm doing matters. So I honestly don't know if I ever would have had even like a modicum of the success that I've had without having a family. That isn't to say go out and have a family just to do that. Because everybody's different, you know? Everybody's reaction is different. But for me personally, that was my big realization, was like, oh no, I haven't been like planning for this future where other people are going to need me. I better start doing that. Yeah, there you go, Maddie. You got to get the kids in your life. Get that real growth. Are you going to write text with a font or just write it freehand? I ask because my handwriting is trash and could use a good natural looking font. I'm going to do handwriting for this one. Just because it's so short, I don't really care to make a whole font and, you know, just have it be for like a few pages. I'll probably make a font for Starvale. Either that or I'll do the whole thing handwritten, and hopefully it won't feel as brutal because I'll just be doing it chapter by chapter. That's the hope. Do you think that there is an alternative for people who don't have / want kids to this superpower you felt when having kids? Oh, I don't know. I think I don't have it in me to really do things for myself. I don't have that thing where, like, I don't have this crazy drive to do good for me. I have like more of a drive to do good for some other purpose. And most of my like initial drive to get good was out of like this fear that I would never amount to anything necessarily. When, you know, it's more like almost like a weird revenge, like just putting it in my like teachers' faces or something from when I was young. Like, I don't know. I was told so many times that like I would never do anything because of my grades, and that, like, you know, I had teachers tell my parents that like they thought I'd be dead in a few years or something, and like lots of negativity about me when I was a kid. So I just wanted to kind of like prove that I could do it, you know? Just do something. So I was very motivated in that regard. But I think like once I got a little older, I kind of just got like, I didn't have that like fire anymore. Like I couldn't just self-motivate that on my own, like get back to feeling that way. Because once I started to realize that like the opinions of those people don't matter to me at all anymore, then I kind of just, I don't know, I stopped having the like, I'll show them attitude, and I just started doing things. And it just kind of got normal. But when I had kids, that's when the other thing kicked in of like, oh, I do have that motivation when I have a purpose. Did you have any awesome art teachers in high school? Yeah, I mean, I had at the very end of my high school, I had this teacher named Mrs. Bertman, and she was very encouraging. But my town had like we had a pretty crappy school, and the art teacher that we had for most of my high school was a substitute who didn't know anything about art. So it was very like self-driven. And he would just like smoke cigarettes with teenagers outside. And he was the one that punched, if you remember the story, he's the one who punched Dan in the back when we were there for like a study period. It was just Dan and I and him, and then Dan and I beat him up. We like beat him up on the ground. But it was totally cool. He was just a total piece of shit. Dave, what should I do if no one is seeing my art? How do I get my viewers followers on Twitter and IG? I mean, you just have to keep improving. I mean, make sure that you're doing it for you, you know, putting out work that you like doing, and just regularly post. You know, be realistic with yourself when you're doing that stuff and judging what you're putting out. Like, look at it and go, am I, like, look at people who get way more than you, right? And then go, am I doing that? And like, I can be very critical of myself. Like, when I look at my work, I don't really care that much, but like, when I look at my work versus other people, like, I'll see like what blows up, and I get it. Like, I get the style, I get like why it's blowing up versus something else. But I have to trust that what I'm doing also has value, and if I just stick with it and I trust my gut and I keep making stuff, And, you know, unfortunately, if I keep feeding the algorithm shit, then eventually I'm going to break through in some way. But honestly, I think like before you're really like blowing up on social media, it's better to be a part of like an art community. Be on Discords, posting, you know, talk to other artists, network, have your friend groups and things in the world making stuff. Because if nothing else, you at least have the support of people who are also coming up in learning. Like before I made any sort of strides online, I still knew a lot of artists. Would you say fan art for trending topics is a good thing to do? I mean, you could try it, but I think that I mean, honestly, like fan art can help, but I feel like there's so much of it out there now with AI and shit that that's kind of a crowded market. But I still see fan art things blowing up, especially if it's about like character relationships or more like niche stuff. Like there's a few people who post up like, you know, I can't remember their name, but there's like people who just post up like relationship comics of like two characters that are from a regular show you might watch, but they're anime here and they're having a gay romance. And like if that's all you do, you can become like famous. I mean, obviously your drawings have to be good, but like just feeding a particular subset of people online who are into like a fandom, there's definitely profit to be had. I see it all the time. That's like most of the viral Twitter shit I see that's fan art related, I feel. Not like there isn't like straight up fan art, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. What I really like about this brush is that I can get like a straight up inked line look when I do my more like drawn characters, and then I can get this painterly feel when I do these more painterly monster types. It's very nice. It has a lot of variety in the brush strokes. I've heard a few art directors and digital painters shit on the use of opacity. Is there a technical reason you don't use opacity, or is it purely reference? I mean, if they shit on that, that's just silly. Do what you do. You know, if you feel like you're doing something that's causing you to have like a bit of a crutch, then maybe more of like what that is generally is speaking to building confidence in your work by using more opaque lines. Like right now I'm using more opaque like ink lines here, but that's just because I've done it so many times and I've built up that confidence. But that's more what they're talking about, I would say. When you're 30, trying to find people on Discord that are your age gets so difficult. I tried to join a few communities, and I was met with Zoomers calling me a soylent cuckold in voice chat. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with that. I feel like the people in our Discord are kind of all over the place. Like, I'm 36, and I feel like a lot of the people who join the Patreon and are part of the Discord are all over. It's like there's people my age, there's people younger, there's people older than me. Like there's kind of just everywhere. So I haven't experienced that, but I could imagine that it's frustrating. Do you know Gerald Perelt? His cover work, Master of the Universe stuff, and concept art is really good. I do know him. I've actually gone on vacation with him. Gerard's great. He really wanted me to do Starvale for so long, and now I feel like I'm finally doing it, and I hope you're happy, Gerald. How often are you happy with your work? I think like every day, really. Like I'm fairly happy with what I'm putting out, but I'm mostly happy with the progress. I don't care about singular artwork. Like nothing in what I'm doing is like, oh wow, this rules. Like I never have that, but I have like a general satisfaction with what I'm doing. Like I'm rarely ever down on myself. The only times I'd ever feel bad is if I knew I could have done more, but I didn't because I was just feeling a little lazy or something. Like then I might feel down, but I never do that anymore. Like that's like an old problem where I had so much going on and I wasn't fast enough when I was younger. So some stuff had to be rushed out. And then I would know that it was bad even if other people liked it. And that stuff bothered me a lot. So I'm making a real effort, and I have been for years now, that I have to be into whatever I'm doing. If that means spending longer on the sketches until I find something that's genuinely cool, then that's what it means. But I have to be into what I'm doing. I can't just put something out to put something out. That's, not like an experiment piece. Like a lot of fan art stuff that I do, I'm not happy with, but I wasn't doing it to make something like really, really cool. I was doing it just to experiment, and I used fan art as my medium to do studies. So a lot of times that's the case. Where like if I ever am not crazy about something I did, it's more because of that reason. Man, listening to that bit about betting on yourself and working hard at it gave me Bushido vibes. Appreciate the energy you bring back to the community. Looking forward to this book. Well, I mean, I just don't like it when artists who are working are kind of like loose with the idea that, like, you know, do anything, you can do anything, like just like just being so motivational to young artists. And like I feel like I try to motivate people to do something, but like I'll never not be realistic about it. That like understand what you're getting yourself into isn't like a thing where you do a little bit. It's like a long-term life dedication, and you have to really love it, and you have to really like working real hard. Because like I work all the time. I've been working every day for, you know, the 17 years I've been working. There's barely any days ever that I take off. And I work the way that you see me working now, but way more than this. Because I'm talking to you, so I'm a little distracted. But if you watch like my inking stream, the one where I was all inks, no talk, that was live, that's like the speed that I usually work at, and I can keep that pace for a few hours on a comic. But I'll be working at a pace the whole day without getting distracted, without looking at anything, without doing anything else. And it's just not like I mean, for me and what I want to do, art's not like a leisurely activity. It's not like something I kind of want to do. It's the only thing I want to do. And I want to do every piece of it. I want to do every single thing you can do with it. And that just means that, you know, I'm in it for the long run, and I'm just going to dedicate my life to making things. It's just what it is. Do I work Sundays? I've talked about my schedule a bunch on here, so I'm not going to get back into that, but I don't work on Sunday. Sometimes I work Sunday nights. But before I had a family, I worked Sundays for sure. And even if I don't work, I still draw at some point, usually. And whenever I talk about like I don't have work to do, I'm not counting this as work. This is just like fun to do. Work is just actual work, the stuff that I have to do to pay bills. Okay. Will you have another comics review contest, or was that a one-time thing? Sure, we could do that in the future. I loved that challenge. I thought it was really cool seeing everybody go for it. I don't want to say anything too harsh or nothing, but just to comment on what Chris was saying in the chat. If people aren't reposting your stuff, and you know, if people don't give you the time of day, or other artists don't, I mean, just keep making stuff and keep pushing yourself to be better. Because you said yourself that you're pretty decent, and I don't know. I mean, it's not terrible to have self-confidence, but if you say you're pretty decent and then work on like smaller trading card RPGs, it's like, are you like decent compared to what? And then like all that stuff is subjective anyway, but if you think highly of yourself at all, and then if you ask over and over like, why not me? It's just the wrong question. You just have to keep your head down in the work, and you don't do it for that reason. And then maybe eventually you get that thing, you know, but that's not the goal. That's not, you know, it'd be nice, but you know, it's not just going to happen. You have to force it. Like I went a long time without having any following. Like when I was just on forums and things back in the day, it's like nobody had social media like this. Like I know I'm going to sound like an old man right now, but like nobody had access to just everybody. There wasn't like a platform for artists to even share work like that until like Facebook. And then like, even then it wasn't even really that, you know, it wasn't like about the art. Like art was like, I was on Twitter back when it first started. I think I was posting in like, God, when did it, 2008 or 9 or something? Maybe that's too long ago. Maybe it's 2011. Whenever that was first around, I was posting on there. And it took a long time for like art and all that to pick up on there. I mean, I only got known through like word of mouth, which is crazy. I mean, like I just worked on everything, and I was like, the only way people are going to get to know me is if I'm great. That's it. I just had to work all the time to make anything happen. And that's all you can really do, is just become undeniable. And you just have to like crunch and push and get there. I mean, that's really it. You know, it's just very much a thing of like pushing yourself beyond what you're capable of now, and hopefully finding an audience that resonates with you. I mean, because it's like that thing of like, what would you rather have? Like this exposure that currently exists, or just nothing, and you gotta like blind email art directors and all this shit. You can't, before Patreon existed, before you could have any self-funded anything. I mean, like, the amount of resources that exist right now is insane. Hey Dave, when you were studying, what were some of the ways you would make it fun for yourself? I've had a little bit of this in past streams where we talked about a few of the things that I would do for exercises, but try and include, I mean, honestly, making a comic is a great exercise for anatomy and all that. And then, other than just project oriented studies, animation was a big one for me. Just having a figure move around in a three-dimensional space. I'm just trying to figure out how to make that work. Is this going to be crowdfunded? Well, at the moment it kind of is with Patreon. But yeah, the final print book will be crowdfunded. But if you want to see the process of making all this and look at some of the finished pages and all that's up on my Patreon. Or if you just want to help support. But yes, the final of this will be a big format book so that all the detail is very visible. And I'm just a big fan of like the giant comics. Are they going to be bigger than the Steve books? Size-wise, yes. Like, not thickness, but the actual dimensions, height and width. The Steve books are ginormous. I'm not about to do a 430 page comic that looks like this. That would be a massive undertaking. I'd need a really good story to want to do that. Do I have any art instruction books I'd recommend? Honestly, not really. The only ones that I really like are the James Gurney books, Color and Light and all that. Like those ones are good. And one of my favorite books just to look through to remind myself how I'd like to be painting is I look at Richard Schmid's books. Those are expensive, but they're very cool. You can also just look up his paintings. I'm just a big fan of how he implies things and how the brush strokes look. It's just so not what I do. Okay, I'm gonna hop off of here in just a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out with me while I work on this. Again, as always, if you want to help support this comic, the Patreon is in the link below. 2+ years of content on there that you can have access to right now. And I've said it before, but you can just go watch all of it, or just take what you want from the Patreon and then abandon it. It's only $5 a month, and there's just hundreds of hours of stuff. And you make stuff like this possible because it'd be very hard to make a comic this detailed without some form of funding. So I am forever grateful to all the patrons for helping me make all of these things be a viable option for me. I'm very grateful. And the other parts of the challenge judging streams for patrons who took part in the Discord compositional challenge, we'll be having those very soon. Probably in the next few days. We'll see. I might be able to do it on like Saturday or Sunday night. But we have a couple more of those streams left to do. I've been doing paint overs of everybody's work. Because everybody spent like 2 months on that challenge. Did 2 huge images. So the least I can do is help everybody in the same way. Direct feedback. Yeah, I've done I'm doing paint overs of all the submissions to the Discord challenge. Just helping people figure out their comps and how to better improve for the next challenge. And it's never a matter of like, you know, with any of these challenges, it's not like you take my paint over and then fix your image. That's something that you could do if you wanted to, but yeah. It's more about just learning from the images that you make and then just applying that to the next stuff. I'm very excited to share the paintings that I've been doing with this brush. They're all bigger client pieces, but it shouldn't be too long before they get released. Okay. All right, I'm probably going to call it here. Even though I wasn't super focused, I still got like almost the whole page inked during the stream, which is something. It's not terrible. That Venom you posted on Twitter was done strictly on Krita? Yeah. Am I going to be at any cons this year? Probably not. Probably not. I'm going to be working on comics all year, so I may not go. I mean, I'd only go to a con if I had like books in hand to sell. Otherwise, I don't really do anything at cons. I don't do like commissions. I just get too bored with that stuff. I mean, like if I'm out somewhere talking to people, especially in like a public place like a con, I never want to have like my head down just drawing the whole time. That's not, I mean, I want to talk to people. I can talk for like a, you know, non-stop. I don't have any problem with being around a bunch of people and just talking all day. I like that. I like doing that, so I would hate to be just down, you know, commissioning the whole time. So I just need stuff to sell, and I don't have comics in hand. But hopefully next year I'll have like a lot of this sort of thing. I'll have this done. You know, this isn't going to take too much longer. This is page 13 out of 22 pages, so it's not bad. But yeah, I appreciate you all hanging out with me. It's been fun. I'm going to be streaming again next Thursday at the same time. So if you want to subscribe, feel free. Yeah, and again, support on Patreon. The link's in the bio. It's $5. And then outside of that, I'm trying to do a stream in between these streams, so on Monday or Tuesday, but those will be like random. But they'll be earlier in the day, like much earlier. Probably about, 8 hours earlier, or maybe even 10 hours earlier than this. Anyway, thanks to you all, and I'll see you on the next one. Next one will be, infinitely more comics. We have to get to the other side of these comics. I need to be done. Okay.